So, today we're going to talk about a set of teachings so incredibly powerful. They literally became a tool for spiritual survival during one of the darkest moments in all of human history. We're talking about the wisdom of the Sefat Emet.
And, that's not an exaggeration. That's not me being dramatic. This is how actual Holocaust survivors described his book. They called it a lifeline, a rescue belt in a sea of complete and utter despair.
I mean, just try to picture that for a second. People were studying these ideas in secret, in bunkers. This book was smuggled onto death trains. His words were memorized. They were shared. They became a kind of spiritual shield against a hopelessness that's almost impossible for us to imagine.
Which, of course, leads to the big question, right? What on earth could these ideas be? What kind of philosophy is so potent that it can actually give you hope when you are staring annihilation right in the face?
Well, to answer that, we've got to go back a bit. Because to really get the ideas, you first have to meet the man behind them, Rabbi Yehuda Ariel Leib Alter.
So, he was born in Poland way back in 1847, and get this, he was basically thrown into a major leadership role at the incredibly young age of 22. For more than 35 years, he guided one of the most influential Chassidic movements. That's a branch of Orthodox Judaism really known for its mysticism and spiritual intensity, all during a time of huge change and upheaval. When he died in 1905, he left behind this incredible body of teachings that, decades later, would become more important than he ever could have dreamed.
So, what was his big idea? What's at the absolute heart of his philosophy? Well, it all comes down to a concept he called the Nekuda Pani, the inner point. The Sefat Emet taught that every single one of us has this. It's a divine spark, a sacred core. Think of it like an inner access road to everything that makes life meaningful. You might call it your soul, your conscience, or maybe just that feeling of awe you get when you see something truly beautiful. For him, this inner point isn't just a nice idea, it's real, and it's something every single person can tap into. And here's the thing, this wasn't just some abstract concept to believe in. No, he laid it out as a practical, two-step spiritual job. Step 1, your first task is just to find it, to uncover and connect with that inner point inside yourself. But you don't stop there. Step 2, your second task is to grow it, to actually expand your ability to feel and experience that connection.
Okay, so if that's the goal, how in the world do you actually do it? How do you connect with this inner point? Well, the Sefat Emet gave us a pretty practical map.
He used this really powerful metaphor from Jewish mysticism, comparing this whole process to digging a well. He taught that our actions in the world, what he calls the commandments, are rituals, sure, but also our relationships, our daily lives. These are the shovels. These are the tools we use to dig past the dry, dusty surface of everyday existence to find those living waters, that divine spark deep down inside.
And this is such a game-changing idea. It means spiritual connection isn't about escaping from your life. It's about digging deeper into all of it. The tools for digging the well aren't some mystical secret. There are friendships, our communities, the parties we go to, and even the moments of grief and sadness. Prayer, study, simple acts of kindness. These aren't distractions from a spiritual life. They are the spiritual life. They're how we get to that inner core.
Now, this personal journey of finding the inner point, it then snowballs into this radical rethinking of two of the biggest concepts in Jewish thought, exile and redemption.
See, for the Sefat Emet, exile isn't about where you live on a map. It's a spiritual state of being. It's that feeling when the divine presence seems hidden, when the world just feels cold and random and meaningless. And if that's exile, then redemption isn't some future event we're all waiting for. No, it's an action. It's the act of revealing that hidden divinity right here and right now.
So here's the most important part, the real punchline. Redemption isn't the opposite of exile. It's the hidden life force that's already inside of exile. That potential for connection, for finding that inner spark, it doesn't vanish when times get dark. In fact, that's exactly where the work of finding it is most critical. The potential for redemption is literally baked into the fabric of exile itself. And now we can bring it all back around. Now you can see why this philosophy became that lifeline in the darkness.
Because if exile is just the state where God's presence is hidden, and if redemption is the simple act of uncovering that inner spark, then it means that no place, no matter how horrific, is totally empty of that potential. This wasn't just a nice thought. It was a strategy for survival.
It meant that even in the deepest exile you can possibly imagine, a ghetto, a concentration camp, you could still perform an act of redemption, just by finding and holding on to your inner point.
There's this incredible story from his son, who was trapped in the Warsaw Ghetto. He said that his father, who had been gone for almost 40 years, came to him in a dream with a message. He said, "Days of darkness are coming. There will be nothing to strengthen yourselves with except for these teachings." It was seen as a direct spiritual instruction, a game plan for how to survive the absolute unimaginable.
Ultimately, the Sifat Emet's wisdom gave people a way to find meaning in a world that had been totally stripped of it. It was a path to inner freedom when all outer freedom was gone. And that kind of leaves us with a question for our own time, doesn't it? In a world that maybe isn't one of physical camps, but one of endless digital noise and distraction that creates its own kind of exile, how will you dig the well and find your own inner point?